Simplicity is an element that can hold a great amount of promise and potential. However, few games go beyond their duty and try to deliver a polished and well-designed experience to add up to that simplicity in the first place. Don't Die, Mr. Robot DX is a remastered version of the original game released for the Switch, with the purpose of expanding on the promise of a fun arcade-like bullet hell experience. So does this game deliver on that promise? Let's jump into the review and find out. Since there's basically no story whatsoever in this game, let's start with the gameplay. The player takes control of a little square called Mr. Robot, and the main objective is to not die, just like the title says. It's an arcade-style bullet hell where the player needs to avoid all the enemies that go across the screen. By collecting different fruits, the player is able to make small explosions that can kill any enemy close to it. It's simple but effective. Get the fruit, avoid the enemies, and try not to die. Spoilers, you will die. There are 4 gameplay modes, including a simple arcade mode where the objective is to just get as many points as possible before dying, a time attack mode where all the enemies are twice as fast and the player needs to die as few times as possible in 2.5 minutes, a chill out mode where all the enemies are much slower and it's overall much easier to survive, and a remix mode that consists of 50 stages with unique conditions and objectives. All of these different modes help to increase the amount of content that this game has, even if the game doesn't feel very unique by itself. It's an easy enough concept to get a grasp on, and it only gets more addictive with each death. Even though the analog stick can make the game a bit harder to control, it doesn't take long until it feels natural to get in and out of risky situations. This type of playstyle is also encouraged by a mechanic that gives the player more points if they come close to make contact with enemies. The player can also collect coins in almost every stage and game mode. They can be used to buy power-ups to help the player out in certain stages, aesthetic changes to customize Mr. Robot's appearance, and even other playable characters with their own unique style of gameplay. All of these mechanics add up to make one of the most addictive experiences on the Switch. Unlocking different characters and other customizable items is a good way to give the player an additional long-term objective besides just completing all of Remix mode, therefore making the player always feel excited to collect more coins and to get more items. Like I said, the gameplay is simple but really effective. It's incredibly well designed and it's the real highlight of this title. It isn't anything impressive at first glance, but the way it innovates itself just guarantees that this game never gets old. The amount of polish and just overall care that went into the presentation is baffling. The art style is charismatic and just overall perfect for an arcade game. The bright neon lights complement the simple cartoony style of the characters, making this experience a whole lot more frenetic and colorful. This is just not a boring game to look at. In each stage, it's assured that chaos will be unleashed upon Mr. Robot, but it never gets too confusing to the point where it's impossible to assimilate what's going on. This frenetic vibe is counterbalanced by distinct looking enemies and what's essentially a stylized blank background. There's not much variety on the graphical department, but it's just polished enough to not feel too repetitive. As Mr. Robot survives each wave of enemies, the colors of the background will change, symbolizing a sudden rise in difficulty, which in its turn serves as a way to cause a minor graphical change to keep the player engaged in a visual level. The sound design is also incredibly satisfying. The soundtrack is a bunch of rather simple techno tunes with an insane beat that only gets crazier by the second. It gets the player right in the mood for some frenetic bullet hell action, helping to set the stage for some absurd play sessions. It's clear that there was a lot of care invested into the little details here. Mr. Robot really is a charismatic little character, and the presentation as a whole feels unique and well made. With all that in mind, I can say for sure that Don't Die Mr. Robot DX goes above and beyond its duty. It's more than a simple way to pass time, it's an incredibly addictive and well-made experience in basically all regards. The way the developers designed this title around its simple concept is what makes this an example of how to make a good time waster. The different game modes provide enough content to play this game for hours non-stop. The different unlockables are distinct enough to provide a reason for the player to always come back, and the overall care that went into the presentation is what adds up to the intense gameplay. I can say with utmost positivity that this game is worth the $9 the developers are asking for. That's why I'm giving this game a 4 out of 5. Hey guys, just to close this video off, I would like to thank DJ for sending us a review copy of this game. If you couldn't tell, I really enjoyed my time with it. Anyway, this was Rick, and if you enjoyed my voice, you can find more of my stuff over at my channel, The Henry Game. There I do this sort of long form of analysis and other reviews on Nintendo games, and you know, other stuff that I like. I would also like to thank all of the lovely people who support us over on Patreon. You guys make all of this possible, and I cannot thank you guys enough. Especially our super patron, the Duke of Dorks. You rock, man. Don't forget to like this video, to subscribe to our channel, and to follow us on Twitter for more info and news straight from the source. Anyway, I will see you guys next time.